Remember this series? Yeah, I got this started last summer. And then I got to this. And I went, all right, I'll get that done tomorrow. And tomorrow. And tomorrow. In the meantime, I got this. Now, I used to have this before, but I had to reorder it because I don't know what happened to it ever since I had it when I was a kid. And this was a magazine I read a lot. So there I am at 11 years of age, reading this. Some hefty reading. Pete Peters up in the corner. It's fantastic that year for the Bruins. Not that I cared. I wasn't a Bruins fan at that point. New York Islanders. And I'm going to get into this because this is where two dynasties converge and one goes up and one goes way down. Islanders drive for 5, no laughing matter. There's talk that the Islanders are beneficiaries of a diluted league, that their 4 consecutive Stanley Cups come at a time when most teams in the league are too weak to wrest the cup away from them, that in another era the Islanders would not be nearly as awesome. But that talk is nothing more than talk. The Islanders are a complete team with tons of talent at every position. This is not mere hyperbole. The facts can be traced back as far as Indianapolis, home of the Islanders' Central Hockey League farm team. The Checkers are a dynasty in their own right, having won 2 consecutive CHL championships, and according to the Hockey News 10 Best survey, the best minor league franchise. Kelly Rudy is the Checkers' #1 goalie, and tops in the CHL, but with Billy Smith and Rolly Melanson occupying the Islanders' net, he's unable to escape Indianapolis. This may be the year he's moved up to the parent team, but there's talk he may be traded to Washington. But he'll have a hard time dislodging the Smith-Melanson tandem, which helped the Islanders win the Jennings Trophy as the top goaltending. Smith is getting older, but he proved that when the money's on the line, he's at his best. All of which means it wouldn't be surprising to see one of the 3 traded away. They didn't trade Smith. That didn't happen. On defense, the Islanders have a good prospect in Gord Dineen, who was voted the CHL's outstanding and most improved blue liner last season. Dineen will try to crack a very talented Islanders blue line core, which is led by captain Denny Potvin, who had 54 assists, 12 goals, 54 assists in 69 games. And Thomas Janssen, 13 goals and 35 assists. But those are just offensive gems. There's plenty of defensive stars such as Dave Langevin and Ken Morrow, who's won 4 Stanley Cups and an Olympic gold in 5 years. Stefan Persson and Gord Lane are dependable, and the Islanders also have Paul Boudelier, the #1 choice in 1981, waiting to dislodge one of the veteran rear guards. At center, the Checkers have Scott Howson. Think about that. Garth Macguigan. I'm going to try that. And Dave Simpson, the former Canadian Major Junior Player of the Year. They finished 8th, 11th, and 13th respectively in CHL scoring, but the Islanders have arguably the best center in the league with Brian Trottier. Trottier finished with 34 goals and 55 assists last season, but offense aside, he's probably the best two-way center in the league. He's a superb face-off man, a crushing checker, and with his 5'10", 195-pound body, he's one of the league's most solid players. Players were shorter back then. Trottier's understudies are not as spectacular offensively, though they're every bit as rugged. Brent Sutter, the younger of the 2 Sutters on the team, had an excellent playoff, scoring 10 goals and 11 assists. He won't garner many headlines, but rises to the occasion in the playoffs. Butch Goring is further testimony to the latter fact, as he was only ordinary in the regular season, but skated with zest and vigor of his younger days in LA. Goring is growing old and may find himself phased out this season. Billy Carroll, an offensive liability, is one of the best penalty killers in the NHL. Indy left winger Steve Stoyanovich was a first-team All-Star, but the Isles probably have the finest collection of left wingers in the league. John Tonelli had 31 goals and 40 assists, and during the playoffs he added 7 goals and 11 assists. Bob Bourne was the Islanders' best player in the playoffs with 8 goals and 20 assists. I need to debate that, though. We need to discuss that. We need to discuss that as a channel. And an end-to-end goal he scored against the Rangers rates as one of the best ever in the history of the playoffs. Clark Gillies, the giant who opposing teams are not supposed to awaken for fear of his wrath, is undeniably the toughest player in the league and gives the Isles a crucial intangible. Clark Gillies was holy crap tough. Greg Gilbert and Mats Hallin are two excellent young prospects who fit the Islander mold. The Checkers aren't overwhelming at right wing, but the Isles have the best in the business in Mike Bossy. Last season, Bossy was a first-team All-Star, fourth in league scoring with 60 goals, his fourth 60-goal season, and 58 assists, and winner of the Lady Byng Trophy for sportsmanship. Bob Nystrom, Dwayne Sutter, and Anders Collar are the team's other right-wingers, with Nystrom and Sutter consummate playoff performers. Fred Crichton is the Checkers coach, but he has no chance of dislodging Al Arbor, possibly the best at his position in the league. The Checkers general manager manages the Isles. Bowtie Bill Torrey has proven behind his glasses are some of the keenest eyes for spotting talent in any league. And what about Pat LaFontaine and Pat Flatley, the Isles' first-round picks in 82 and 83? LaFontaine set the QMJHL on fire with his scoring prowess, and the fact he was drafted by the Isles resulted from sheer genius on the part of Torrey. As for Flatley, he played with Canada in the World Championships in West Germany. Yeah, it was West Germany. It wasn't just Germany back then. It was West Germany. And was one of the few non-pros on the team. Both LaFontaine and Flatley will play in the Olympics. LaFontaine for the Americans. And the experience they gained should make them better players. Don't worry, the Isles will be there in the postseason party. They've got too much talent waiting in the wings. One goal and center and defense to crumble. A fifth cup, it wouldn't be a long shot. So there you go. There's the glowing review of all things that are the Islanders after 1983. So that's key, is to remember this is after 1983. Now let's go through the Oilers, and then I promise the reading section of today's video will be done. When the bookies lay down the odds for the 1982-83 winner of the Stanley Cup, the Edmonton Oilers will probably be one of the favorites. This is before 83-84. Does this book not know when it was written? In the true spirit of Bum Phillips, the Oilers knocked on the Stanley Cup door last season, and they'll be looking to break it down this season. After easily winning the Smythe Division last season and reaching the finals of the Stanley Cup in a record 11 games, the Oilers, in everyone's books, were supposed to easily defeat the aging New York Islanders in the Stanley Cup. Instead, the Oilers lost in 4 straight games. What really worked against the Oilers was inexperience and the outstanding net minding of Billy Smith. Having now experienced the finals, the Oilers know what they must do to win it all. By all accounts, then, the Oilers should be in good position to go all the way. But isn't that what many people were saying about the Oilers 2 seasons ago? Weren't they supposed to roll over the weak Los Angeles Kings in the opening round of the 1981-82 playoffs? Having surprised everyone when they knocked off the vaunted Montreal Canadiens in the playoffs the season before that, the Kings humiliated the brash Oilers in the playoffs, and they tasted more of the same when the Islanders polished them off last spring. And that was the narrative coming out of 83. The leader of the Oilers, of course, is Wayne Gretzky. In 4 seasons in the NHL, he's accomplished everything with the exception of winning the Stanley Cup. 4 years, no Stanley Cups. Holy crap. I wonder what young players in the NHL haven't won a Stanley Cup yet. A lot of them. This season, his regular season feats will be clouded by his poor playoff performance against the Islanders last spring. The Islanders proved he is indeed a mere mortal. Although the entire Oilers team flagged in the playoffs, and it's hardly fair to blame Gretzky for the entire thing. So, Gretzky had a bad playoff in the finals against the Islanders, and there were people going, I don't know if Gretzky can fight his way through this hard checking. I don't know. I think he's kind of soft. Does that sound like anybody else? Happens all the time. As you know, these young kids come in, and until they win something, people are like, I don't think he's good enough. And then he wins something, and all right, well, we always knew he's one of the greatest. One thing is clear, and the Oilers are far from a one-man team. Gretzky's right winger is Jari Kurri, the underrated Finn who had his finest season with 48 goals and 106 points. Czech Jaroslav Puzar occupied the left wing position for a while, but was replaced by Willie Lindstrom, who the Oilers got in a trade with Winnipeg. But the lack of a consistent left winger on this line may hurt the Oilers. Even though Gretzky and Kurri are as good a duo as some quality trios, they could benefit from someone who will play from Game 1 to Game 80 with them. And of course, it's usually remembered that Glenn Anderson played on that line, which is not entirely true. But that's what they look at the depth chart and think, oh, it's Anderson, Kurri, and Gretzky. No. The Oilers boast the fastest line in the league in Glenn Anderson, Mark Messier, and Ken Linzman. That was a great second line. The Troika was voted 1st, 2nd, and 5th respectively in the speed category in the Hockey News 10 Best survey. Collectively, the line produced 129 goals and 285 assists. Messier was voted to the league's first All-Star team, and he's only 22, 8 days younger than Gretzky. Imagine that. 22 and hasn't won anything yet. It's done. He was hampered by a shoulder injury in the playoffs, but he should be healthy from the start of the season. Anderson got involved in the embarrassing Billy Smith playoff fiasco. Did he or did he not club Anderson and Gretzky with intent to injure? Billy Smith was brutal. But that aside, he is one of the most exciting players in the league. Like Billy Smith, you get anywhere near the net, and he would club you with his stick. So while we all talk about, we watch these things on instant replay, like, oh, was that intent? Oh, there was intent with Billy. Yeah, you knew at the start of the game there was intent. I'm pretty sure he was doing that at everybody at the start of the game. The Oilers have a fine selection of defensive forwards in Dave Hunter, Ray Cote, Pat Hughes, Dave Lumley, Tom Rolston, and Dave Semenko. Hunter is one of the best checkers in the league, and Cote came on in the playoffs, having been promoted from Moncton and excelled. Hughes and Lumley are grinding wingers who chip in with timely goals, while Rolston may be the odd man out of the pivot picture. Semenko is the Oilers' designated tough guy. Not just designated, the ultimate tough guy. Him and Gillies, I guess. Gillies was all around. Semenko was just tough. On defense, the Oilers are explosive. Paul Coffey proved he's one of the best at his position. He led all his rivals with 29 goals and 96 assists, and was a second-team All-Star. Charlie Huddy, Coffey's blue line partner, won the Emery Edge Award with the best plus-minus figure in the league, and has emerged from a shadow of anonymity. And Huddy went back into anonymity for the most part. As this publication went to press, Kevin Lowe was still a free agent, and although negotiations were getting nasty with the Oilers, he was expected to be back in Edmonton this season. The Oilers' other defensemen, Captain Lee Fogelin, Randy Gregg, and Don Jackson, are all capable, although there are those who would suggest that some changes have to be made on the blue line if the Oilers are going to go all the way. Andy Moog has proven to be one of the NHL's better young goalies, and Grant Fuhr's waiting in the wings for a chance to redeem himself. He was a rookie sensation, suffered in his sophomore season last year, and is yet to really establish himself again. There you go. Young goaltender. Struggles in his second year, and he's crap. He's done. Chances are that the Oilers will be back in the Cup final this time, and if they can deal for a frontline winger, Bill Barber's name is often mentioned, they may have what it takes to go all the way. As for new faces within the organization, center Mark Habscheid is still awaiting full-time duty, and left winger Todd Strube, a junior grad, will be looking to stick with the big club. The one pitfall the Oilers have to avoid is the one that engulfed the Minnesota North Stars. The Stars, like the Oilers, made it to the finals and lost. They were supposed to come on and win it the following season. That was 3 years ago, and the Stars have not progressed. In fact, they've been getting further away from the Cup every year. That final step, winning the Cup, is obviously the most difficult. There you go. There's the reading portion. Does that give you a good feeling for 83? They go to the final. They beat Winnipeg 3 straight. They beat Calgary in 5. They beat Chicago in 4. 11 games, 10 of them wins, they get to the final. They're in a rush. The Islanders crush them. The Islanders win all 4 games. The scores are 2-0, 6-3, 5-1, and 4-2. And coming out of that finals, you look, Gretzky 38 points in 16 games, and he's criticized. Curry, 23 points. Messier, 21. Anderson, 20. All of those guys above a point a game. And there was a lot of criticism heaped on Edmonton because it was perceived that they could not play defense. This was a team that was all offense. Coffey, 7 goals and 7 assists. Linsman, 6 goals and 8 assists. Lindstrom, 2 goals and 11 assists. Hunter, 4 goals and 7 assists. Kevin Lowe, 1 goal and 8 assists. Hughes, 2 goals and 5 assists. Huddy, 1 goal and 6. Jackson, 3 and 3. Gregg, 2 and 4. And Cote, 3 and 2. In net, Andy Moog, 11 and 5, 3.04 goals against, and an .896 save percentage. Now, remember this is the 80s, an .896 save percentage was actually pretty good. And he was a solid goaltender then, but he got eclipsed by Fuhr the following season. But let's take a look at the 1983 Islanders here. This is the winning team. Bob Bourne, 8 goals and 20 assists, 28 points. Was he the best Islander? No. Mike Bossy had 17 goals that year. Mike Bossy was lights out that year. He did only have 26 points, 2 behind Bob Bourne, but I would say that Bossy was their best player. Brent Sutter, 10 goals, 11 assists. Dwayne Sutter, 9 goals, 12 assists. Neither of them were the most gifted forwards offensively, but you know what? They could fight, they could check, and they could score in the playoffs. They were just deadly together. Any team in the NHL now would be overjoyed to have brothers that could play like they did. Potvin 8 goals and 12 assists. Trottier 8 goals and 12 assists. Tonelli 7 goals and 11 assists. Kallur 3 goals and 12 assists. Nystrom 7 goals and 6 assists. So Bob Nystrom was as tough as they got too. Ken Morrow 5 goals 7 assists. Butch Goring 4 goals and 8 assists. Janssen 2 goals and 10 assists. Person 1 goal and 5 assists. Merrick 1 goal and 3 assists. This is the 4th time they won. They won with Billy Smith with a 13-3 record, 2.69 goals against, 913 save percentage. I didn't write the name here, but these are Rolly Melanson stats in those playoffs. 2-2, 2.55 goals against, 911 save percentage. I was a foolish child at the time and felt that Rolly Melanson should be the starter and they should trade Billy Smith. Remember thinking that as a kid, and I know looking back now just how silly that really was. The Islanders got there by beating Washington in 4, 3-1, because it was only a best-of-5 series back then. The Rangers, they beat in 6. They beat Boston in 6, and then they swept the Oilers. It was a tougher road for the Islanders to get there. They faced, I would say, tougher competition than did the Oilers, and yet they had the energy to sweep the Oilers in that round. So what changed between 83 and 84? Age changed things. Experience changed things. Gretzky comes in, and even though the Oilers played more games in 1984, Gretzky had less points. There was more scoring to spread around. Gretzky had 13 goals and 22 assists for 35 points. Curry had 14 goals and 14 assists. So that's a massive improvement from the year before. Messier, 8 goals and 18 assists, 26 points. Coffey, 8 goals and 12 assists. Anderson, 6 goals and 11 assists, so he drops. Ken Linseman, 10 goals. We all remember him as a rat. And he was. But Linseman was also a major part of those Oilers in 1984. 10 goals in those playoffs. Pat Hughes, 2 goals and 11 assists. Dave Hunter, 5 goals and 5 assists. Willie Lindstrom, 5 goals and 5 assists. Dave Semenko, 5 goals and 5 assists for Dave Semenko. That's insane. I think they played 20 games that year. 3, 10. Nope, not even. 19. They played 19 games. He had 10 points. McClelland had 4 goals and 6 assists. Randy Gregg, 3 goals and 7 assists. Kevin Lowe, 3 goals and 7 assists. Charlie Huddy, 1 goal, 9 assists. Fuhr took over. Grant Fuhr's goals against in that playoffs, 2.99 with a save percentage of 911, which is about the equivalent of like a 930 in today's playoffs. I would say that Fuhr's 911 would be the equivalent of a 930 by today's standard. Andy Moog won all 4 games he played, but 2.76 goals against, well, that looks good. The 891 save percentage kind of sunk him. And it was at this point that Grant Fuhr took over, and Moog kind of got sulky with the Oilers organization, and that would lead to him going to Boston, where he didn't win a Stanley Cup, but I was very, very glad to see him in Boston because they needed him. It was a three-game sweep again over Winnipeg in the first round that year. Then they beat Calgary in 7. That's when the Battle of Alberta really heated up. They beat Minnesota in a sweep in the next round, and then they beat the Islanders in 5. So they only lost 4 games, won 15 that year. They only lost 5 games the year before, but 4 of those were in a row, and they got knocked out of the playoffs. Now, when you look over the Islanders side of the board, Clark Gillies leads the way with 12 goals and 7 assists, which is impressive, but Bossy, 8 goals and 10 assists, and Bossy, it started falling for him then. I thought I'd made a mistake. I'm like, why isn't Clark Gillies on the previous year? Clark Gillies only played 8 games in 1983 in the playoffs and had 2 assists. I had to double check that. Pat Flatley, 9 goals and 6 assists, and this is why we felt when the Islanders lost that year that it was going to happen. They were going to still be excellent. You heard the glowing review of what the Islanders had. These prospects coming up, their AHL team, then called the CHL. It was this great franchise. They were winning everything. Look at all these prospects. They all look great. They've got this stacked roster. Everything's awesome. But Trottier, 8 goals and 6 assists. That's down from the 20 points he had the year before. Brent Sutter, 4 goals and 10 assists. Greg Gilbert, 5 goals and 7 assists. Pat LaFontaine, 3 goals and 6 assists. And by today's standard, I would think that fans would complain LaFontaine wasn't used enough, especially against the Oilers when they started getting overwhelmed. Janssen, 3 goals and 5 assists. Paul Boudelier, 1 goal and 7 assists. Butch Goring, 1 goal and 5 assists, so half of what he had the year before. Potvin, 1 goal and 5 assists, a huge drop from the year before. Person, 6 assists. Kylor, 2 goals and 2 assists. Dwayne Sutter, 1 goal and 3 assists. In the finals and in the playoffs, Billy Smith looked human. 12 wins, 8 losses, 2.73 goals against, 905 save percentage. How they get here? They beat the Rangers in 5 in the first round, so again, 3-2 because it's a best of 5. Washington in 5, Montreal in 6, and then they lost to Edmonton 4-1. The score of this series, 1-0 Edmonton in Game 1. Then the Islanders won Game 2 6-1. And that was when people were like, all right, yeah, well, the Oilers got a game this year, but the Islanders are going to win it again. Then the Oilers won 7-2, 7-2, and 5-2. And the 7 and the 5 didn't surprise anybody, but the fact the Islanders only got 2 goals did. Now, if you interview any members of the Islanders about this time, they'll tell you the 1984 playoffs, they were spent. They had won 19 series in a row before this. 19 series in a row. That's a record that nobody will ever touch. Nobody's ever going to win 19 series in a row again. It's never going to happen. This team was tired. It was done. And as soon as this final was over and they fell out, the veteran players of the Islanders, it started to erode quickly. Whether it was Mike Bossy having back problems, or it was just the fact that Trotier's offense left. Now, Trottier was excellent defensively, so he continued on to a very long career, including key roles with the Penguins in both their first and second year, winning the Stanley Cup in 91 and 92. Trottier was a major part of that, even though he wasn't a scoring part of it. This is where the Islanders fell, and this team has never really come back from it. You look at their track record since 84, and it's not great. I think they've made 2 conference finals since then. I want to say 87 and 93, but you know it's a weird thing, and this is why when we talk about dynasties coming to an end, nobody looked back at those Islanders and said the dynasty was over. We all kind of expected 85 to go, oh look, it's the Oilers and the Islanders again, and it wasn't. The students became the teachers showed their age the next year. And it was that attrition. It was just that constant battle. Those extra games. You got to think that with those 19 series that they played an extra season of playoff hockey compared to what most other teams were playing. It's a lot of hockey over a period of 5 years, and it does tend to wear you down. This is why when I talk about the war of attrition in the playoffs, you know, this is what it is. This is what it does. This is why I talk about it. Now, players are in better shape now than they were then. Conditioning's completely changed. Players play till they're older. And yet, the league's getting younger, and it's getting bigger. So, you know, it's a different game now than what it was then. Can you imagine a Stanley Cup final now where you'd see scores of 6-1, 7-2, 7-2, 5-2? That's insane. None of these games go to overtime. None of them. And there's no tension late in the game for any of them other than Game 1 here, and Game 4 here. But even this, which is a 4-2 win for the Islanders, you're not looking at a ton of tension because they were up 3-0 at the time. So, there you go. The finalists, I knew I couldn't just talk about the 83 Oilers, and I had to talk about the 83 Oilers and the 84 Islanders. And when I get up to it, there's the Red Wings and the Penguins when they did the same thing in the 2000s, where they met again and things switched. The Oilers would become the bane of my existence once I became a Bruins fan, which would be a couple years after this. But at this point, who was I cheering for? I was cheering for the Oilers because I had seen these guys win every time. So I had seen them win in 81, 82, and I was like, I want to see somebody else win. And in 84, I finally got that. And I really expected them to come back and win another one. But there you go. So there's your finalists from 83 and 84. And I will continue this series. This series will go on. And what the series is profiling the teams that got close, almost won the Stanley Cup, but didn't quite. So the 83 Oilers and the 84 Islanders. Their paths would cross no more. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and holy crap, I actually did the finalists video.